This one you're going to want to be careful because it's got this metal clip, so you want to kind of hold that so it doesn't go flying. Pop these out, whoop, and it went flying. So alright, good morning everyone. I'm in the shop today. I actually came in with the guys early because this truck and another one need an oil change. So I did those this morning, rotated the tires. While I was working on this one, I figured out a problem, which I knew about. The front brakes are like gone. I knew they were getting low, so I had ordered a brake kit and just got as much out of it as I could this summer. So it's a cooler day today. It's like 60 something. It's like 68 degrees out. So it's a good day to be in the shop. I had other plans, spider spray, hedge apples, whatever, but this needs to be taken care of before it can go back out. I'll show you what it's like. If you haven't done front brakes and you think you want to try, every vehicle is a little bit different, but if you have a Tacoma, I think they're the same from 2016 to now as far as brakes. So we'll get into this one. Everybody has different opinions about the right way to do things. So if I don't do something exactly the way you would, it's okay. This is the way I do it. But we're gonna get this thing set up and we'll get her fixed up. All right, first thing we're gonna do is get this up on jack stands properly and get the front wheels off. All right, so I've got the wheel off. I went ahead and turned the steering wheel so that the brake's out further. It makes it easier to get to the bolts for the caliper and everything. A couple of things that you're gonna need. I obviously have new brakes. I've got my socket set, metric, a pair of pliers or needle nose, some brake cleaner, and brake grease. So, and I've got a light. So you don't need a ton to work on these. They're actually a pretty cool system, the way Toyota has them designed. But before we start working on the brakes, the first thing you're going to want to do is pop the hood. You're going to want to take the cap off the brake fluid reservoir, because as we compress these calipers back, it's going to push fluid back up. So, all right, I'm going to show you what I got for a brake kit. You can buy just a set of pads if your rotors are in good shape and replace the pads. That's kind of the cheap way to do it. There's all sorts of different grades of pads. I'm not going to get into that too much, but I like to get a little bit higher end because they seem to last longer and work better. And the thing I hate the most is brake chatter, which is where you push the pedal and the steering wheel shakes or the brake pedal shakes. These Tacomas are pretty notorious for that, warping the rotors and developing chatter. So instead of just resurfacing the rotors, I always buy a set of rotors to put on. If they're wore out this much, this truck's at like 97,000 miles, and we're gonna need a good set of brakes to go another 100. So I also spend a little bit extra to get the drilled and slotted rotors. They just have better braking power, and they tend to not, warp and cause chatter as much as the others. So these are made by Power Stop, which is a decent brand that you can get if you order at Rock Auto or one of those places. You can always do a better price if you order ahead of time, because you'll get it. I mean, this kit is like $100 or something. If you got to go buy it, you're going to spend 150, 200 bucks, and you may not get the same caliber or quality. So I like Power Stop. They're not a sponsor, but they do make good brake kits, and they give you brake grease, they give you all new hardware and decent pads with shims already on them. So that's going to be useful. So besides brake kit or pads or whatever you're putting on and tools, you will need some brake cleaner. This is to clean up the I think it's Cosmoline coating that they put on these so they don't rust. You got to clean the brake surface so that they'll actually work. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, we're at the caliper now. There's a couple of things to note. There's a hard brake line right here that connects to this bracket. We're gonna have to undo this 12 millimeter so that we can remove the caliper when we get to that point. But these are actually a cool setup because you can actually pull these pads out without removing the caliper, which is different than a lot of setups. So I do like this for that simple reason, but these little clips and stuff seem kind of just chintzy, but they work. So I'm not knocking them. You do want to remove these pins. So there's a top, a bottom, and then they hook into holes on the pins themselves. So then you can remove these pin slides. Sometimes they'll come right out, sometimes they won't. This one you're going to want to be careful because it's got this metal clip. So you want to kind of hold that so it doesn't go flying. And then you can remove this metal clip, which is just, I think, just pop these out. Whoop, and it went flying. So keep your hardware depending on if your new brakes provide it or not. And you'll see right here, there's supposed to be pad on this side, and it's like gone. There is, we got every last bit of brake pad out of there that we could. Anyway, so the first thing you're going to want to do is, if you're not replacing the rotors, you want to be careful and compress the pads both ways. So there's calipers on each side. These are 4-piston, well, 2-piston double calipers, and you got to squish it a little bit so you can pull these pads out. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can carefully push back a little bit. If you're replacing your rotors, then it really doesn't matter if you damage the rotor, but you want to make sure that it's correct. But I just give myself just a little bit of room, and then the pads should just come right out. You can see we got every last bit of pad wore off of that, and it wore even, so that's great. Good job. These do come with shims, so we'll hold on to that until we see the new ones. Just got to get this one out. Same deal. Shim, and then there's the squealer, which I'm sure it was making noise. And yeah, we got all the life out of those we could. So now we've got to focus on removing the caliper. First thing we're going to do is this 12 millimeter. Okay. Then there are bolts on the back of the caliper, up top and down bottom. These are 17s, I believe. Alright, so before I remove this last bolt on the caliper, there's a sensor wire back here, and it's clipped in to a couple of brackets. One right here on the brake line, and one down behind the knuckle. And I want to just undo that so that I'll have room to get this out of the way. Now, right off the bat, you want to make sure that you're supporting your caliper bracket or your caliper. We've got a strap from one of our backpacks that I can adjust to the right height. And so I'm going to take the caliper and suspend it from the upper A-arm, just so it doesn't put any stress on the brake line or the speed sensor. So we'll pull this bolt out, take the caliper, Put my strap through, bring it up here, hook it up. Oops. Helps if you line it up right. Nice thing about this strap is it's adjustable, so I can just adjust it to the right height, and it's just going to hold the caliper. You don't want it dangling, so that way nothing's going to fall. Now we can work on this section. So, and yes, I have gloves on. You can call me a prima donna, you can call me whatever, but brakes are dirty and they have a lot of crap, so I like wearing gloves. Alright, next we're going to remove the rotor, and the way to do that is it's only being held on by rust and whatever else. So you take a mallet or a hammer and you just smack it to break that rust. Try not to hit your wheel studs. Okay. So I did what you're not supposed to do, and I used my hammer to beat on the back of the rotor. I've got new ones, so I really don't care. And then your rotor just comes off, and this one's full of junk. Basically all that junk that's floating around down there is what had it stuck to this. So I'll show you what we can do with that so that it doesn't get so bad next time. Next step is we're going to get a wire brush and we're going to just clean this up so that it doesn't get stuck again. And then we'll put some brake grease on these flat surfaces and around this lip to stop it from rusting to it again next time. So the next thing we need to do is grab one of our old pads and a C-clamp, and we've got to squish or pull the calipers back in, and you just have to do it carefully. Just make sure that you're not hurting or damaging your caliper at all.
One eternity later.
Okay, that was a pain in the butt. I don't remember last time it being like that, but basically if you squish one side of the pistons in, it just forces fluid to the other side, so it's got to kind of be a combined effort. So I clamped this side tight and then used these puffy screwdrivers to push against the brake pad and force the other side in. So we've got them in now. That was way more work than it needed to be. Alright, so at this point, caliper is pushed back, we're ready for the rotor. Then we can put the rotor caliper on, slide the pads in, put the clips in, and get it done. They've even labeled these, so I can't get them wrong. So all you do is slide your rotor on there. And then I've cleaned the back side with brake cleaner. I've got to hit the front side real quick. Okay, now we're ready to put the caliper on. That will hold the rotor in place, and set it down there. Get a bolt. Push this up. I don't know about you guys, but I love the smell of brake cleaner. I know a lot of people hate it. Other people say use Loctite on these. Sometimes I do. I just don't have any today, so I'm not. But always start your bolts by hand before you use any tools, so that you know you're not cross-threading. sensor clip back in and we're good. And then I'm going to feed this one back in here too. So now we've got rotor on, caliper is good. So we'll look at our brake pads here. So they gave us the hardware with the clips, which is great. There's actually extra clips. Oh, these are different. Okay, I'll show you the difference in these. I think it's actually a better system. And then they've got brake pads that are pre-shimmed, and they give you a little bit of brake grease for if you want to use it. So you should have one with a brake squealer. These both have brake squealers, and one without. And then one of the things that I like to do on the shim, because this is going to go in right here, because you need these are the holes where the pins go through. So before I put it in there, I'm going to put a little bit of brake grease right here on this surface where the calipers sit on it, and that helps cut down, you know, vibration noise and stuff like that. But it's, you do it right before you're putting them in, and very little bit, not a ton, just a little bit. Don't get any on your brake pads themselves. And then slowly pop these in. Okay. And then we've got new pins. So I'll get 2 new pins. You get one of these crazy contraptions, which are fun, and they're stuck together. And then it's got a new style for the long clip, which I prefer. Here, get it greased, and then you got to make sure that's towards the pistons, and then the pins go out. So we just slide it in, and then you got to start putting your pins in through those holes. Line them up a little. There, that one's in. Oh crap, shouldn't have put the bottom one first. Gotta remember, top one can go in, bottom one you need to put in this funky guy, which it goes like that. Let me show you real quick. So you've got to have it, the pin goes through this clamp or this clip, then these 2 square pieces are on the outside of the brake pad, and then the clips go into the holes. This other design is better than the old one. The old one had this long clip that held through the ends of both of those pins and clipped to the middle. Power Stop makes single clips that look like that. They go into each one. The way the brake works is those calipers squish and they push the pads against the rotor as it spins. So now we've got lots of pad. It is loose in there, which is fine. I'll show you how to fix that. Line's hooked up. This is ready to go. So now all we need to do is do the same thing on the other side and then put the wheels on. All right, I'm back on the other side. I had to stop and go get some more brake cleaner. The can I had was running out. So while I was out, I stopped and got a lunch. So I'm back at it. We're gonna do the other side. First side took us about an hour. This one should be same or less, I don't know. We're time lapsing, so it's gonna be like 30 seconds. Ready, go. All right, this side's all done. I'm going to clean up a little bit and then show you how we're supposed to break these in. Two very important things. We'll get to those in here in a minute. Let me throw these tires on and we'll get to going. Okay, so there's two things you have to do. Remember I told you to take the cap off of the brake fluid reservoir so that it would have air, or it would have a way to push fluid back. This one was down in the middle and now it's up just barely above max, like slight. There's two ways to do this, two schools of thought. They say that the brake fluid that's closest to the wheel gets super hot and actually deteriorates. So they say to bleed off and add new. I do that sometimes, but it's a pain to bleed them and I can't do it by myself, so I'm not doing it today. Because I crimped or squished those calipers back in, it pushed fluid back up. Now, if I get in and drive it right now, I'm gonna have no brakes. So what I have to do is get in and pump the brakes up to build that pedal, because everything's loose. So basically where it's loose on the pads right now, we've got to get those tightened up. So that's why you have to first pump your brakes. So it went all the way to the floor. But if I pump it up, then I start to get a pedal again. And all that did was just squeeze the brakes, all the parts together. Okay, so before we drive it, we're going to put the cap back on. And I'm going to tighten or torque the lug nuts. So now I'm looking at it and it's right at the max line, just a little bit under. So that's perfect. You want to check your fluid, make sure it's not too full and make sure it's not low. So we're going to cap this off, call that good, torque the wheels, and then we'll do part two. I'm in the truck now. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you part two of the important things to do. And a lot of people don't do this. And I'll talk to you about reasons why you could or wouldn't do it. So your brakes are all brand new. They're factory made, cast, however they make them. They're going to have slight imperfections, maybe burrs or stuff on them. And they've never been like super heated. So to break in your new brakes, and this is especially important if you're doing new rotors as well as pads, you take them out to a stretch of road where you can accelerate, hit the brakes hard, accelerate, hit the brakes hard, accelerate. Basically you're going to heat them up 4 or 5 times, and you're never going to actually come to a stop until you've driven a ways after that to cool them off or to let them seat properly. So right now I'm just putting through the neighborhood because I don't want to use the brakes yet. I want to get to a spot where I can actually speed up and use them. So that's what we'll do just fine. So most shops are going to take your vehicle for a test drive and they'll do either a good or a mediocre process of seating the brakes or breaking them in, getting them heated up. So that's typically how that works. If you do it yourself, you want to consider it. I'm doing it because I've got the drilled and slotted rotors, so a little higher performance brake system now, and you definitely want to break those in properly. So you don't want to just put them together, send the tech out to run his route, because they don't perform perfectly at first. All right, here we go. We're going to get up to speed, heat them up, and then start working them. Here we go. 50. So there's 60. Standing on. All right, I'm back. The battery died on the GoPro in the middle of breaking in the brakes, but that's okay. It's pretty boring anyway. There are different opinions about how to do it. That's just the way I do it. You guys can comment if I'm right or wrong. Tell me what I need to do better. I forgot to mention, when I did the passenger side in time lapse, I struggled over here with the compressing the pistons back in. Then I remembered when I got to the other side how I do these. Because I'm replacing the rotor, I don't care if I scratch or damage the old rotor. So I took a couple of screwdrivers and I pried one pad out, and then I stuffed my needle nose pliers in there to bridge that gap, and then I pulled the other side. That way I had something to pry against, because this side I fought. It's been a couple years since I've done these. So that's this one's a 2018 Tacoma. They're all pretty much the same from 2016 to 23. So brakes are important. You never want to skimp on them, but it is something that you can do. You can do just pads. If you do pads, I recommend that you turn the rotors or have them resurfaced, because if they warp at all, then your brakes will wobble and chatter. I just replace them because it's only like $60, and I can get some higher quality brakes that'll last a little bit longer. The rotors, pads, I've heard all the stories. There's Wagner, there's Power Stop, there's TRQ, there's all these different brands. Some people love one, some people love another. It's fine. Buy whatever you want. Just try to get something that's not the cheapest, because a little bit more money spent in brakes is probably a place where you want to put some of the money. And you need to make sure that you're going to be able to stop. So I used to be afraid. I was very timid about brakes. I didn't want to ever touch them, because I figured if I messed them up, then that'd be a big problem. And it would be, but they're really not that hard. They're pretty simple to do. Your first time doing it, you'll probably take an hour or two extra, but I did that one side in about 25 minutes. This one I took a little bit longer because I was trying to film it, but they are pretty simple, pretty easy. So all in all, you can spend a couple hours doing fronts, and most of your stopping power comes up front. So the backs on these trucks are drums. I haven't attempted those yet. I may in the future, but drums always scare me. There's a lot of little springs and parts and clips and stuff that so I've typically only done disc. It makes sense to me. It's easy. So you guys will have to let us know. There's different things that you would recommend we do when we're doing brakes. There's all these different opinions. Go ahead and post those below. Comment what you suggest be done and how it be done. And if you have a favorite, brand or place to buy brake parts or something like that, you can post those below too. That'll help other people. So that's going to be it for today. I've got a lot of projects that I'm going to work on this winter. I just need to know what you guys want to see. So I've got to finish up the termite rig to put on a trailer for another setup. I've got 2 rigs that I want to revamp. You guys have seen us do that before. I've got a termite rig for Omaha that needs to be redone, just gone through. I've got this rig that's seen some action. Check out this hose. It's like burnt black from the sun on top. So obviously this one needs to be cleaned out, redone, new hoses, new fittings, powder coat the frame because it's bad. So I could do that. I've got the one for Omaha over there. I've got stuff to rebuild, pumps, sprayers, all sorts of stuff. If there's any of that you want to see, let me know. Somebody did request some sort of wall injection machine. We don't have it, so I'd work on it, but I don't have one, so sorry. If we get one, then I'll work on it. I'll show you how. I guess the wand trigger mechanism was broke. I think it's going to be similar to a B&G, but I'm not sure. I haven't used that brand, but if there's something you want to see, let us know. We'll try to get to it. We got a bunch of projects. I am building another smoke machine from scratch. Maybe we'll show that on here. This one's getting a Honda motor. It's going to be pretty cool. And then I'm also building another, where is it at? So I've got another termite pump plate right here. that I'm going to rebuild for another large termite rig, kind of like Smurfette, our big pre-treat truck. I've got a brand new Honda motor right here. It's going to go on that plate. I'm going to rebuild the pump. That's going to be a project. I've got a hose reel up there on the shelf that can go on it, and we're working on locating a tank. That's really all the parts you need other than hose. So we've got that. If you want to see that, we've got general maintenance that we do every winter time, sprayers and whatnot. So let us know what you want to see. If there's anything that can help you, I'd be happy to try to tackle it and see if we can share some knowledge. So other than that, that's brakes on a Toyota Tacoma. Thanks for hanging out today. I appreciate it. Didn't expect to do brakes today, but hey, that's what needed to be done so that this truck can get back on the road. Anyway, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. We'll see you guys on the next one. So I'm getting ready to work on this brake video that I'm filming today, and Ryan sends me a text. He went up north to his property, crossed the river, saw something interesting, so he filmed it. I'm going to stick that in here.
Right in the middle of the river, the shipping lane. That's awesome. Love it.
So that's a section of the river. We actually didn't go there. We were very close. That's almost where we started. But right in Kansas City, there's a barge that's sunk right in the middle. Man, that's going to be a pain to get that out. It's cool to see. I mean, it sucks that it happened, but it's a neat sight. So sorry about your day, barge. Hopefully it goes better.